Jesus.
In a small, quiet town, a little girl knelt in prayer upstairs when a familiar voice called from outside her window.
Megan?
It was her grandmother, saying she was cold and asking to come inside. Trusting her without hesitation, the girl reached for the latch. Just then, her mother rushed upstairs, but she was too late.
Baby, please just...
Maybe I can come in.
You don't look like my grandma.
She's not your grandma.
And in this place, too late is a way of life. This is from The next day, the girl's drunken father returned home to find a crowd gathered outside. Believing there was some sort of celebration, he stepped inside, only to be met by Officer Stephen, who slapped him across the face and demanded to know why the windows had been left open when children were inside. Without waiting for an answer, Stephen dragged him upstairs. There, the father froze in horror. His wife lay dead beside the bed, and his daughter's mutilated body lay nearby, her organs gone. His drunken haze dissolved into grief and regret. Though Stephen's rage tempted him to kill the man on the spot, he held back. Instead, he had him locked away to await trial and entrusted the funeral arrangements to the town priest. This was no ordinary place. In this town, a strict rule governed survival. At sunset, Stephen would ring a bell, signaling everyone to go inside, lock their doors, and place a black stone outside. Without it, man-eating monsters would come. The father's absence had left his family unprotected, and they had paid the price. As punishment, the town sentenced him to spend a night in an iron house without the stone. Stephen protested, knowing it was a death sentence, but the priest refused to bend the rules.
Hey, I prefer not to put a broken man in a fucking box.
How do you think people are going to react when you let Frank go?
Secretly, Stephen offered him a blessing stone, yet the man returned it, resigned to his fate.
I want to see my girls again. But the only two things that I love in this world are gone.
That night, Stephen locked him inside.
I'm ready.
At first, the silence held, but soon voices and laughter surrounded the house. Shadows of his wife and daughter appeared, calling to him. Overcome, he let his guard down. Moments later, the monsters broke in and tore him apart. The next day, during the funeral, a car pulled up carrying a family of 4. The father, Jim, asked for directions to the highway. Stephen told him to drive straight, but no matter which way Jim turned, the road led him back to the village.
Wait. This is getting really creepy.
All this can't be the same place.
You think they're ready?
Go ahead, get the strip.
On another attempt to leave, his car collided with a black vehicle. The crash threw his family into the bushes, and from the other car emerged a woman named Jade, seemingly unharmed. Stephen quickly discovered that Jim's young son, Ethan, was trapped with an iron bar through his leg. Stephen and a small group, including his son Ellis, the priest, Nurse Christie, and Deputy Kenny worked together to free everyone. Ethan's injury, however, required surgery, and nightfall was approaching.
These woods are not safe after dark. I don't want to bury any more kids.
Stephen stayed behind with Christie and Jim to operate, placing a stone at the door and warning Jim never to open it. Soon, eerie shapes appeared outside the car. They looked human, but Stephen knew better. Meanwhile, the rest of the group tried to return to the village, but were delayed when their tire blew out. They ran toward a communal house for safety, but the people inside refused to open the door. When the real monsters appeared, Julia saw what looked like her dead boyfriend and nearly went to him, but Kenny held her back. At the last moment, Donna, the house owner, let them inside.
Donna, come on.
We have a protocol.
We're not gonna do anything. Please.
Once safe, Donna revealed the truth. Everyone here had once been a traveler who became trapped in the village. At night, the monsters would take the form of loved ones to lure their victims into opening doors. Once inside, they would torture and devour them. The only defense was the stone placed outside. Without it, no one survived until morning. A few hours earlier, at the infirmary, the man from the black car was resting from his injuries when Sarah, one of the villagers, appeared without warning.
What happened?
There was an accident.
Hey. You just rest. I'll be back soon.
She walked in silently, then drove an iron bar through his throat, killing him instantly. Her expression was distant as she spoke softly, as if addressing someone invisible.
I can't. I can't do anymore. You sure?
That night, the nurse made her usual rounds to check on the patients. She found a man's lifeless body and noticed the door already standing open. Before she could react, the monsters entered. In a panic, she fled to the basement, hoping to survive until sunrise. By dawn, Nurse Chris had completed surgery on Ethan. The boy's condition was stable, and Jim's family reunited, relieved to believe the worst had passed. Their relief was short-lived. Later that day, villagers discovered Chris' body in the infirmary. She had been devoured. Kenny, devastated by the news, also learned that his father had died there on the same night. No one could explain why the door had been left open. Meanwhile, Ethan was recovering in the communal house when a boy dressed in white appeared outside his window. Intrigued, Ethan stepped outside and met Victor, the first person ever to arrive in the village. Every day, Victor measured something along the side of the house, though he never explained its purpose. When Ethan asked about other children, Victor told him there were none. Julia soon called Ethan back inside, her tone wary of the old man.
Don't talk to him.
Why?
Because he's creepy.
That afternoon, the villagers gathered to welcome Jim's family and a man named Jade. Stephen assigned Jim a house that had been empty since its previous occupants, a mother and daughter, were killed. Julia refused to live there, choosing instead to remain in the communal house despite Tabby's attempts to persuade her.
Why are you doing this? She chose your rules, Boyd, not mine.
With nowhere else to go, Jade accepted an offer to stay with Deputy Kenny. The following day, Jade discovered a hidden cellar beneath the house. Inside, he saw a rotting corpse. But when he looked again, it had vanished, replaced by a strange symbol on the wall. Disturbed, he told Kenny, yet when they returned, the cellar appeared ordinary. Kenny dismissed it, explaining that newcomers often experience confusion, and shared his belief that the village existed in an uncharted dimension where people from distant places ended up. At that moment, a radio suddenly crackled to life. Kenny ignored it, but Jade snatched it up and left, clearly intent on carrying out his own plan.
Is it? Yeah. What are you... Jade!
The next morning, Jim took Ethan to the communal house for breakfast, where Kenny's mother served food and Sarah often assisted. While Jim stepped away, Victor approached Ethan and handed him a drawing of the boy in white. He claimed to have seen the child before and suggested they search for him in the forest.
That's him.
Jim returned to find them talking and angrily told Victor to stay away from his son. Yet that afternoon, Victor went to the back of the house and convinced Ethan to join him, promising an adventure. Curious, Ethan followed. They ventured deep into the forest, farther than most dared to go. Eventually, Victor spotted the boy in white and gave chase, leading them to a massive tree with a hollow trunk. When they dropped a stone inside, it fell back down from above, leaving them both puzzled.
How does it do that?
I don't know.
Back at the house, Jim and his wife discovered Ethan missing and the back door ajar. They ran into the woods, calling his name, but their shouts drew the attention of a pack of hounds that quickly surrounded them. A gunshot rang out, scattering the animals. It was Victor holding a rifle. Though furious, Jim remained silent, aware that Victor was armed.
Dad, leave him alone!
I'm not a bad person.
Later, Victor returned home and examined his old drawings, which included sketches of the hounds. His mind drifted back to his childhood in the village, when he had seen those same hounds feeding on corpses. Among them sat the boy in white, happily swinging before disappearing. That image had haunted Victor ever since, fueling his determination to uncover the truth about the mysterious child. The next morning, Jim's family went to the public house for breakfast. The room buzzed with conversation until a sudden cry cut through the chatter. Sarah clutched her hand in pain, and before anyone could react, dark words appeared on her skin. Kill the child. Her eyes locked on Ethan in terror before her body convulsed, sending her into a seizure.
Sarah!
Hey. Oh, no. Okay, grab her arm.
When she regained consciousness, she was lying in the infirmary. Christy, the nurse, expressed concern, but Sarah insisted it was only a headache. Moments later, her younger brother Nathan rushed in, alarmed by the news. Nathan had long known about Sarah's troubled past, but had never told Stephen, believing it was his duty to stay close and protect her. Recently, however, her increasingly erratic behavior had made him deeply uneasy. After leaving the infirmary, Sarah walked straight to Jim's house, a knife hidden in her hand. With a friendly tone, she invited Ethan to visit her farm. Unaware of her true intentions, Ethan agreed, and Tabby decided to join them. At the farm, Sarah lured Tabby into a warehouse and locked the door, then advanced toward Ethan with a knife.
Could we also spend the night in here?
What are you doing? Sarah! Please, I'm sorry. Why are you sorry?
It won't be long.
You're doing this for her.
Nathan arrived just in time to intervene, but in the struggle, Sarah slashed his neck.
Oh,
Nathan.
No!
With his final breath, he managed to speak only a few words before collapsing. His scream brought the villagers running, but by then Sarah had fled into the forest. Grief and rage consumed Jim, and he blamed Stephen for failing to protect his family. Stephen could only admit that the search had failed, and with night approaching, the monsters would almost certainly find her. Days passed without any sign of Sarah. Most assumed she was dead, yet in truth, she was hiding in the priest's basement.
We need to talk.
Before his death, Nathan had confided everything to the priest, including Sarah's claim that a strange voice had been guiding her. She believed that obeying it could somehow free the villagers. The priest, intrigued, considered the possibility that this voice was divine, perhaps connected to an ancient biblical text he believed had shaped the village itself. As they spoke, Sarah sketched a symbol that perfectly matched the logo on a chocolate bar the priest had buried when he first arrived. The accuracy left him stunned. Meanwhile, Jim and Tabby were puzzled by a discovery in their home. The electrical cables were hollow, yet the lights still worked. Around that time, Jade approached with an idea to build a radio receiver to prove they were still on Earth. Lacking proper materials, they scavenged parts from the wrecked black car. After hours of work, the device was assembled, but it needed to be placed high above the ground for a stronger signal. Jim volunteered to climb a massive tree. As he worked, Jade noticed the tree's trunk was bleeding. Looking closer, he saw human corpses embedded inside, along with the same eerie symbol he had encountered before. A soldier suddenly emerged from the shadows, aiming a gun at him. Panicked, Jade fled into the forest. The landscape shifted around him. And suddenly Jim was standing right in front of him, as if nothing unusual had happened. Jim finished setting up the receiver and began sending messages, but there was no response.
Hello? Is anybody there?
Frustrated, he returned home, only to find Tabby digging in the basement. She had been tracing the electrical lines underground and believed they led to something hidden. Elsewhere, Jade sat alone in the village restaurant, sketching the strange symbol. Kenny's mother happened to see it and immediately recognized it. Without a word, she led him to a storage room, where an old book revealed a nearly identical mark.
Oh, what the fuck?
That night, while the communal house slept, a man named Kevin climbed to an upstairs window. Outside stood a monster wearing the form of a beautiful woman, her voice low and inviting as she asked when she could come in. Kevin smiled, unaware or perhaps unwilling to admit that no one in the village knew of their nightly conversations or how close he had come to opening the door. That day marked the village's annual gathering, a celebration held to honor both the living and the dead. Laughter and music filled the air, yet no one knew the night would end in tragedy. Elsewhere, The priest met with Stephen to share everything he had learned about Sarah and the strange voice she claimed spoke to her. Stephen was skeptical until the priest revealed a drawing and a chocolate bar he had buried upon his arrival in the village. Since Sarah had arrived later, there was no way she could have known about them unless the voice was real. With that revelation, Stephen explained his own plan. He intended to venture into the forest alone in search of a way out. Most villagers feared the monsters and never dared to enter, but Stephen believed carrying a protective stone might keep him safe. The theory had never been tested, yet he was willing to risk it. The priest insisted on joining him, determined to bring Sarah along, convinced her strange abilities could be important. Meanwhile, at the communal house, Kevin finally surrendered to the nightly temptation of the monster that had been visiting him in the form of a beautiful woman. He opened the door and welcomed her inside.
Now close the window. Quick. Kiss me.
Their kiss quickly turned savage when she bit into his mouth, killing him instantly before attacking again. Outside, more monsters gathered, surrounding the building while the villagers continued celebrating, unaware of the danger creeping closer. During the feast, an Asian girl left early to rest. The moment she entered her room, monsters struck, killing her instantly. Shouts of alarm erupted, and panic spread as the creatures forced their way inside, hunting anyone they could catch. Elsewhere, Julia was speaking with Victor when the alarm rang out. Victor wasted no time. He tied a rope to the window and escaped with Julia into the night. While others scattered in confusion, Victor led her deep into the forest to the giant hollow tree. He told her to jump inside to stay safe, but before she could respond, he shoved her in. Julia's scream echoed as she fell, only to find herself inside a wooden cabinet in an abandoned cellar far from the village. Victor was nowhere to be seen. Back at the communal house, the remaining survivors fled for safety, with some reaching Stephen's home.
They got in.
Where's Ellen?
I don't know.
Outside, the priest was helping villagers escape when a monster attacked, slashing his neck. Stephen dragged him inside, but the wound was too severe.
Okay. But deliver us from evil. Amen.
By morning, grief hung over the village. 14 people had been killed and eaten, their remains left scattered in the streets. Determined to act, Stephen resolved to carry out his plan immediately. He left Kenny in charge and made his way to the infirmary to see his son Ellis. Though Ellis had survived the previous day with only minor injuries, their relationship remained tense due to the past. Years earlier, Stephen, his wife, and Ellis had been traveling when a fallen tree blocked their road.
Did you buy the boat? Thank you.
Searching for another route, they had unknowingly wandered into the village. At that time, no one knew about the protective stones. Life was harsh, food and water were scarce, and nights brought terror as monsters roamed freely. Each day claimed more lives. Stephen took it upon himself to bring order.
But where do we start?
Over time, he became the village's leader, working tirelessly to improve conditions. One day, he ventured into the forest and returned with a live goat, astonishing everyone. He later found chickens and other animals, creating the foundation for a steady food supply. From then on, Stephen repeatedly risked his life, entering the forest alone to hunt and gather resources for the villagers, determined to give them a fighting chance. One day, while exploring the forest, Stephen spotted a hunting dog and decided to chase it.
Hey.
The animal led him deep into unfamiliar territory, and before long, night began to fall. Fear crept in as he searched for a way back. In the darkness, he stumbled into a cave. Moments later, monsters emerged from the shadows outside, surrounding the entrance. Stephen braced for death, but after silently watching him for a moment, they turned and vanished into the night. Only then did he realize the cave was filled with strange black stones. By morning, Stephen made it back to the village just as the sound of gunfire echoed through the air. He arrived to find his wife armed and agitated, claiming the village was nothing more than a dream and that death was the only escape.
It's okay. It's not real.
I mean, stop.
When she saw Stephen alive, she believed it was an illusion. As she aimed her weapon at another villager, Stephen was forced to shoot her.
Oh, no!
The villagers soon discovered the stones could protect them from the monsters, yet Stephen's loss was immeasurable. Ellis, at last, forgave his father, understanding he had no choice. The two embraced before Stephen set out for the forest once more, taking Sarah from the priest's basement. He was convinced her abilities might hold the key to understanding the truth behind the village. Meanwhile, Jim had begun a new project, constructing a radio antenna on the roof of the communal house. If it worked, it might allow them to contact the outside world.
You're okay with this?
Sure.
The villagers pitched in to help, though many doubted its success. Some had already lost hope, ending their lives quietly rather than endure another day trapped. Elsewhere, Jay continued examining a sketchbook filled with strange symbols. Between two stuck pages, he uncovered an old photograph. Kenny's mother immediately recognized a younger Victor in the image, proving he had lied about being the first to arrive in the village. Determined to confront him, Jade searched, but Victor had vanished without a trace. Deep in the forest, Stephen and Sarah came upon a massive tree draped with bottles, each containing a slip of paper. At the sight, Sarah collapsed in agony.
You okay? You okay? No.
When she awoke in their tent at nightfall, Stephen told her that every paper carried the same number, 1864. Sarah revealed that while unconscious, she had heard a woman's voice warning Stephen not to go any further, as dangers far worse than the monsters awaited ahead. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble violently.
What's happening?
I don't know.
When it stopped, a bright light spilled into the tent, and outside, patches of white now covered the earth.
Well, unless it told you which direction to go.
Drawn by a strange sound, Stephen ventured forward and saw a haunting vision of his wife bound to a tree, reaching out to him. He ran toward her, only for swarms of spiders to pour from the webs, biting him repeatedly. Sarah fought them off, but the venom left Stephen racked with pain. Even so, they pressed onward. Back in the village, Jim completed the antenna. The villagers cheered as it powered on. Tapping into the settlement's electrical grid. A storm rolled in as Jim finally made contact with someone beyond the village. Relief turned to dread when the voice on the other end warned him that his wife should never have dug that hole.
Hello? Is there someone there?
Yes, we're here.
Whoa, slow down. Is this Jim? Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim.
Alarmed, Jim rushed home to find Tabby in the basement, digging frantically. The ground beneath her gave way, sending her tumbling into darkness. She landed in a cavern where Victor appeared, as if expecting her arrival. He revealed the terrible truth. They were standing inside the monster's lair, the walls covered with their markings. The creatures had been living beneath the village the entire time. Victor pulled Tabby away just as the cavern began to collapse. Moments later, Jim reached home, only to find a gaping hole where the basement floor had been. He called out for her, but there was no reply, only silence from the darkness below. On the other hand, after countless attempts to find answers, Stephen and Sarah finally reached a strange lighthouse perched high on a hill. The sight filled them with a flicker of hope, but Stephen, weakened by his injuries, could not go any farther. While she stood unsure of what to do next, Sarah noticed the boy in white watching her. He pointed toward a massive tree and told her that if she went inside, she would be safe. Acting on impulse, Sarah helped Stephen to the tree and pushed him into its dark opening, convinced she had sent him back to the village. Instead, Stephen found himself in a small, enclosed space with 4 solid walls and no visible way out. He called for help, but his voice only echoed back at him. Deep in the forest, a bus suddenly appeared on a narrow road, blocked by a fallen tree. The driver turned around, unknowingly steering straight into the village. The passengers appeared calm, except for a young man named Elgin, who grew uneasy as he glanced at the landscape. He quietly urged the driver to leave immediately. In a communal house, the villagers worked quickly to pack away the radio equipment as a violent storm rolled in. Circuits began to fail one after another. While Jade was cleaning, he spotted the unfamiliar bus and rushed to alert the others.
Fuck me.
There is a bus parked outside the diner!
Kenny and Donna went out to greet the newcomers, who still believed they had arrived in an ordinary town. Elgin, however, insisted he had seen this place before in a dream. His friends Mari and Brick tried to soothe him, eventually convincing him to step off the bus. Tensions rose when Randall, another passenger, lost patience with Elgin and nearly started a fight. Elsewhere, Julia returned home to find her mother missing and a deep hole yawning in the basement floor. Jim feared Tabby had fallen in. Julia ran into the streets to get help, encountering a man from the bar who agreed to assist. Brick and Randall joined them, and the group began digging.
Who are they?
Our bus stopped here.
Your bus?
Get this done quickly, all right?
A sudden, powerful tremor struck, causing the house above to collapse. The rescuers sprinted toward the wreckage.
Julie!
Randall escaped with only minor injuries, but the others were pinned beneath the debris. Nurse Christ hurried to treat the wounded. When she recognized Mari among the newcomers, she ran to embrace her, revealing that they had once been in a relationship before Mari vanished months earlier. Far below ground, Tabby encountered Victor once more. Together, they followed a dark tunnel, eventually coming across an old suitcase containing a white dress.
What the fuck?
Their path led directly into the monster's lair, where the creatures lay sleeping. Moving silently, they pressed on until Victor froze at the sight of Dog. Tabby reassured him, and they continued deeper, only to discover an even larger number of monsters in the main cavern. In its center rose a tall, ominous stack of stones. They entered another chamber, where a child with a twisted, horrifying face suddenly emerged from the shadows. Tabby screamed, and the sound woke the creatures. The lair stirred with movement as the two fled, racing through the tunnels until they found an exit that led to the forest's edge. Victor guided her to an abandoned truck, his hidden refuge for the night, where they could remain unseen.
I come here sometimes.
Back in the village, night approached quickly. Donna urged the bus passengers to take shelter, but the driver refused, insisting she could get them out. Realizing there was no time to explain the danger, Donna shot one of the bus's tires and ordered everyone inside. Even so, some passengers, gripped by fear, bolted into the darkness, unaware of what awaited them. Elsewhere, Jim realized he could not escape in time and told Julia to go without him. He believed that if he stayed hidden, the monsters would pass him by. Reluctantly, she left him behind.
You gotta go.
It's okay,
We have to get inside. Let's go. Come on, please. Inside.
When the chaos outside finally subsided, Donna gathered the remaining newcomers and revealed the grim truth about the village. Every night, man-eating creatures emerged, and anyone caught outside would be slaughtered. Skeptical as they were, the sight of her gun kept them from arguing. Meanwhile, far from the village, Stephen finally heard movement above him.
Hey, are you real?
Yeah, I'm real. Are you?
A rope dropped into the cellar, and he climbed up, only to discover he was still underground. Across the dimly lit room sat an old man, chained to the wall and surrounded by corpses in identical positions. When Stephen spoke, the man said he'd been there so long that his memories had begun to fade. Stephen tried to break the chains, but they held fast. The old man explained that he had once lived in the village and warned that the monsters were not the worst danger. Something far worse existed. Then, a haunting melody began to play from a small box adorned with the figure of a dancing woman. When the music stopped, worms began to writhe under the old man's skin. The man gripped Stephen's shoulder, whispering that his blood now belonged to him. Moments later, he collapsed lifeless. Horrified, Stephen ran, only to find himself back in the forest. The cellar had vanished, replaced by the ruins of an old building. As night fell, a dog appeared, leading Stephen through the trees until he came upon Victor and Tabby. Their reunion was brief, interrupted when Elgin burst from the shadows, pursued by monsters. Stephen pulled him into their vehicle, and with the protection of the stone, they sped away unharmed. Along the way, Elgin told them about the bus, the collapse of Jim's house, and the passengers still trapped in danger. Tabby's concern for Jim deepened. In the village, Ellis and his girlfriend searched desperately for the missing passengers, but as the monsters closed in, they were forced to retreat. Elsewhere, 2 passengers had taken shelter in a house when a voice outside called for them to open the door. Believing it was safe, they obeyed, unaware, falling into the monster's trap. At the bus stop, an elderly couple hiding in the shadows was discovered and killed. Screams echoed through the streets.
Oh, thank God we heard the screaming.
Inside the communal house, Randall tried to force his way out, but was stopped. He grabbed Kenny's gun and ordered everyone to stand back. Before the standoff could escalate, a knock sounded at the door. Kenny seized the moment, disarming Randall and taking him into custody. Beneath the collapsed building, Jim and the bar owner kept perfectly still, knowing even the smallest noise could draw attention. Not far away, Brick regained consciousness, badly injured and panicking. The tavern owner tried to calm him, but his wounds were too severe, and he died. Moments later, a monster attacked, killing the tavern owner as well.
Tom, what's happening? I think he's fucking dead.
Jim stayed hidden, frozen in fear. By morning, the villagers discovered the tavern owner's mutilated body outside. Julia rushed to find Jim and was relieved to see him alive.
Julie!
He was taken to the infirmary, and soon after, Tabby returned with her group. Jim embraced her tightly, overjoyed that she had made it back. The bus driver, now having witnessed the horrors firsthand, accepted the truth about the village. Stephen arrived to lay out the rules for survival. Randall resisted at first, but Stephen's grim warning was enough to make him comply.
That's a good choice.
Meanwhile, Jade learned that Victor was still alive and sought him out to ask about the strange circular symbol in the notebook. At the mention of it, Victor's demeanor shifted. His voice grew tense as he insisted he knew nothing, then turned and walked away quickly. Not long after, tragedy struck when Jim's home collapsed, forcing his family to stay temporarily with Kenny's mother.
You come, stay our house. Thank you so much.
One afternoon, Tabby and Julia went to the warehouse to collect clothes. On their way back, Tabby noticed 2 strange children in the distance, standing silently and staring at her.
Mom, what's wrong?
Nothing. Let's go home. What? Let's go home.
Okay,
Come on.
okay.
Later that day, while sitting on the porch, she watched Ethan playing with blocks. The shape he built matched the symbol she had once seen carved inside the cave. Suddenly, the 2 mysterious children appeared again, this time standing right in front of her. Tabby froze, fear rooting her in place. Convinced these visions were connected to the monsters, she traveled to the cave on the edge of the forest. There, she carefully arranged stones into the same symbol. In the distance, a group of children appeared and ran toward her, wrapping their arms around her. But when she turned around, they had vanished. Meanwhile, outside the village, Kenny and Ellis were searching for food when a noise caught their attention. They discovered a girl leaning against a tree, an iron bar lodged through her head, yet still alive.
Help me.
Get Christy. Go!
Nurse Christie arrived just as the girl began to speak. She revealed that she had been one of the bus passengers. She and her husband had been tricked into opening a door for the monsters. The creatures dragged her husband away, tortured him, and killed him while forcing her to watch. Without proper equipment, there was no way to save her. When Stephen arrived, he made the grim decision to pull the iron bar free. The girl screamed in agony before collapsing and dying. The next day, Kenny went to the priest's house and heard movement in the basement. To his shock, he found Sarah hiding there. When Stephen learned of it, he rushed over. Sarah explained that she had entered the tree just as Stephen had, but instead of the forest, she had emerged in the basement. Stephen promised to protect her and ordered Kenny to keep her present secret. As Stephen left, dizziness overcame him, and he felt worms shifting beneath his skin. At the communal house, Randall refused to help with any work, spent his days sprawled on the sofa, and stirred trouble whenever he could. Eventually, Donna had enough and threw him out, forcing him to live on the bus.
You really don't get what's happening here. Best of luck.
At night, monsters gathered outside, but Randall only shouted insults at them without stepping beyond the door.
You think this is scary? I'm not afraid of you.
You don't fucking walk away from me!
Days later, Jim had recovered enough to continue investigating the strange radio signal. He told Stephen he believed the village was part of a secret military experiment and that everyone living there was a test subject. Stephen remained doubtful, though Jim's reasoning was unsettlingly convincing. When Jim shared the theory with Donna, she warned him to stay silent until there was proof, fearing the idea could cause mass panic. Meanwhile, Kenny confronted Sarah in the basement, demanding the truth. She admitted that on the night Kenny's father was killed, she had been the one to open the infirmary door. Kenny's anger deepened when he realized Stephen had known and chosen to protect her.
You knew. I found out the night before I left.
He tore off his badge and walked away. News of Sarah's survival spread quickly. Jim and Tabby confronted her, shouting and demanding she be executed. Stephen intervened, insisting she might hold the key to understanding the village and escaping it. Reluctantly, they agreed to let her stay, though their mistrust remained. Determined to retrieve Nathan's belongings, Sarah went to her old house, only to find a new family living there. They told her the items had been sent to Kenny's mother's warehouse. Sarah went to the restaurant to ask for them. She apologized for her past actions, but Kenny's mother, still bitter, handed her the package with a warning never to return. As she stepped outside, Kenny saw her, stormed over, and yanked the package from her hands, scattering its contents across the ground. When she bent to retrieve Nathan's commemorative statue, he snatched it away and smashed it to pieces. His voice was cold as he warned her never to face him again. The crowd stood in tense silence, except for Elgin, who quietly helped her gather what remained. Elsewhere, Jade kept to himself after the failed radio project, spending his days absorbed in research on possible escape routes from the village. Strange visions began to trouble him, flashes of the bleeding, circular symbol and the man from the old photograph. While he was still trying to make sense of them, Victor appeared at his door. After a moment's hesitation, Victor decided to reveal the truth. He led Jade to an empty lot littered with rusted, broken cars and told him the man's name as Christopher, a former resident known for his kindness. But when Christopher learned the true meaning of the circular symbol from the ancient book, something in him changed. He became violent, slaughtering everyone in the village. Only Victor survived, hiding in a basement until it was over. He warned Jade never to seek the meaning of the symbol, for it would destroy him as it had destroyed Christopher. Meanwhile, Stephen visited the priest's old house and found the rooms stripped bare. In the center of one room sat the same music box he had seen in the basement. Its haunting melody began to play, and a girl appeared, dancing slowly. When Stephen stepped closer, she suddenly moved, and he awoke to find himself at Kenny's mother's house. Kenny noticed his fatigue and offered to walk him home. On the way, yellow leaves drifted down from the trees, something that had never happened in the village before. A sharp pain surged through Stephen's arm as worms writhed under his skin. The music returned, and the girl appeared again, visible only to him. But when he looked back, she had vanished. A few days later, the arrival of new residents put increasing pressure on the village's food supply. Donna calculated that only a month's worth of provisions remained. The recent storm had wiped out the vegetable crops, and regrowth would take time. Tensions rose quickly. During a heated argument over missing food, a man accused Elgin of stealing from the kitchen. Elgin denied it, but the man threatened to expel all newcomers. Ellis stepped in to break up the fight, and in the struggle, the man's knife slashed across his stomach.
Get off me!
Fucking stabbed me.
Ellis, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry.
Blood poured from the wound. With monsters already roaming outside, getting Ellis to the infirmary was dangerous. Elgin volunteered to fetch a vehicle and reach them just as the creatures drew near.
Go! Hey, stay!
They raced to the infirmary, where Christy prepared Ellis for surgery. The wound was severe, and without stored blood, a family member was needed for a transfusion. Stephen wanted to volunteer, but feared passing his infection to his son. Then, the worms beneath his skin began to writhe violently, sending waves of pain through his body. An idea formed. Leaving the infirmary, he deliberately lured the monsters toward him.
Come get me.
When one attacked, he slashed its neck and pressed his infected blood into the wound.
My blood is your blood now, motherfucker.
At first, the creature only laughed, but moments later, its body convulsed as the worms spread through it, twisting it in agony. The remaining monsters lost interest in him. Stephen realized the infection was gone and sprinted back to the infirmary. The transfusion went ahead, and the surgery was successful. Ellis was safe at last. The next morning, the villagers discovered the monster from the previous night lying dead. Whispers spread quickly. Could Stephen's blood, and the worms once inside him, truly kill these creatures? Christie proposed bringing the body in for an autopsy to find out. On the operating table, she made the first incision and froze. The creature's anatomy resembled that of a human, yet its organs were shrunken and withered, as though it had been dead for years. When she pierced the gallbladder, a thick yellow liquid seeped out. Christie suspected the worms were still within its system, and that this substance might hold the key to killing more monsters. While others focused on survival, Jim remained convinced that the village was part of a government experiment. Tabby, frustrated by his obsession, urged him to focus on practical ways to help. Outside, Jim's attention was caught by a remote-controlled plane, which was Randall's. Randall claimed it was a gift for his cousin, but Jim saw an opportunity. He took Randall to his family's old car to salvage parts that could enhance the plane with a radio receiver. If they could get it high enough, it might pick up a signal from beyond the village. Together, they built the antenna, but the plane could not carry much weight. Disappointed, Jim was ready to give up, but Randall proposed another approach. If this really was a government experiment, there might be a spy among the villagers. That night, the two planned to hide in the car and follow the monsters to see where they went after dark. Meanwhile, Tabby visited Jade and told him about the underground cave. Spotting the circular symbol in his notebook, she revealed that she had seen the same mark inside the monster's lair. Believing Victor might have answers, they went to confront him. At first, he refused to speak, but Tabby pressed him, insisting this could be their only chance to find a way home. Reluctantly, Victor agreed and led them to an abandoned parking lot where he had kept drawings from years past. The sketches brought back painful memories, as he had arrived in the village not alone, but with his younger sister. One night, fear kept him from protecting her, and she was killed. Among the drawings, Tabby found a depiction of a strange tower. Victor explained that children were being kept there, and his mother had believed that rescuing them was the only way to escape the village. Back in town, unsettling events began to unfold. While taking a bath, Elgin heard faint music. A music box appeared before him, and before he could react, something dragged him underwater. A grotesque effigy stared at him from the darkness. At the same time, Kenny returned home to the sound of the phone ringing.
Little boy.
When he answered, a man's voice repeated, "They touch, they break, they rob. No one here has freedom. As long as the music plays, they will never stop." Confused, Kenny turned toward a pot on the stove and saw thousands of cicadas swarming inside. One flew out and bit his arm. He jolted awake, realizing it had only been a dream. Yet a bruise now marked the same spot where the cicada had bitten him. Soon after, Stephen arrived, asking Kenny to accompany him to the infirmary so Christie could collect more of the yellow liquid to use as a weapon. But when they arrived, Mari was pale with fear. She insisted she had heard noises in the basement. Descending the stairs, they found a swarm of cicadas covering the monster's corpse. Kenny recognized them instantly from his dream. Moments later, Donna arrived, but when she and Stephen looked again, the insects had vanished. While discussing how to dispose of the body, the group carried it outside, unaware that Randall was watching from a distance. Later, he approached Donna alone, his intentions unclear, but his expression suggesting he was already planning his next move. That afternoon, as Stephen and the others made their way back to the village, a sudden scream pierced the air from a nearby house. They rushed toward the sound and were met with a horrifying scene. A woman lay on the bed, her body violently torn apart beyond recognition. Her husband, trembling, explained that she had been asleep, murmuring in her dreams, when her body suddenly came apart before his eyes. When Stephen asked what she had been saying, the man repeated the words, "They touch, they break, they rob. No one here has freedom." Kenny froze. Those were the exact words he had heard during the strange phone call. By now, villagers were gathering outside, whispering in fear, but Stephen ordered everyone to return home before nightfall. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Jim arrived to meet Randall as planned, only to find Randall holding Donna at gunpoint. Randall accused her of being a government spy, claiming he had seen her help move a monster's body to conceal the truth. Monsters, he insisted, were supposed to be immortal. Donna denied the accusation, but Randall refused to listen. Jim tried to intervene, but Randall blocked his path.
Part of the reason we're still here. F her. We are not doing this.
Here, this one.
Moments later, Stephen emerged with his gun drawn, forcing Randall to release Donna. With darkness approaching and the monsters soon to appear, they prepared to leave, but Randall suddenly tossed the car keys into the woods, insisting he wanted to know who among them was the real spy. With no other choice, they took shelter in the car. Stephen had brought a vial of monster fluid and coated bullets with it, hoping it might kill the creatures. As the night deepened, the monsters surrounded the vehicle but did not attack.
The fuck? They've stopped.
They stopped here too.
Then, a haunting melody began to play, followed by a loud crash from beneath them. Fear rippled through the group.
These are fucking pieces. How's it? Jim.
What the fuck?
In panic, Randall smashed a window and fled into the trees. The others remained inside, trying to keep calm, but when Stephen fired, the bullets had no effect. Jim managed to start the engine, and they sped away just as the monsters closed in. Randall, however, ran deeper into the forest, where he was quickly engulfed by a swarm of cicadas. Back in the village, chaos was building. Reggie shouted frantically that something was coming and everyone was going to die. Upstairs, Mari saw the air fill with cicadas. They swarmed her, and she began to convulse, her eyes turning a milky white. Christy stood frozen, watching in terror. Similar attacks occurred elsewhere. Julia collapsed at home as if something invisible was attacking her mind. In the midst of the confusion, Elgin finally spoke up, saying that before arriving in the village, he had dreamed of a boy in white who repeated the same haunting phrase. They touch, they break, they rob. No one here has freedom. A nearby woman claimed she recognized the line from an old poem she had learned in childhood. The revelation left Stephen deeply unsettled. The following morning, the village was eerily quiet. Julia and Mari remained unconscious. Donna led a search party into the forest, where they found Randall lying motionless on the ground. But when they tried to move him, he woke with a piercing scream. At that same moment, Julia and Mari reacted the same way back in the village, as if all three were connected. Desperate for answers, Stephen sought out Sarah. Together, they ventured deep into the forest, searching for the ancient ruins where Stephen had once been trapped. Without warning, Sarah collapsed, blood dripping from her nose.
Kenny, come on. Yeah, go ahead. Come on, buddy.
In a strained voice, she told Stephen that he had brought the monster to the village, and now it would not stop until everyone suffered. The only way to end it was to destroy the music box, or everyone would die. Stephen was left shaken. He had no idea where the music box was or how to destroy it. Meanwhile, Jade, still determined to uncover the truth about the circular symbol, entered the monster's cave alone and ventured deeper into the darkness. As he navigated the twisting passages, the air grew heavier and the shadows deeper. Eventually, he reached the heart of the cave, where mysterious children appeared, lying on the rocks and chanting in an unfamiliar language. When he looked up, a hidden passage revealed itself above him. But the moment he turned back, the children had vanished and the opening had sealed shut. Meanwhile, Tabby pored over Victor's drawings, growing convinced of what his mother had once believed, that finding the tower and rescuing the children might be the only way to escape the village. She asked Victor to take her there. Jim, uneasy about her safety, urged her to reconsider, but Tabby was resolute. Victor led her deep into the forest until they reached a towering tree adorned with bottles swaying from its branches. At its center yawned a deep, shadowy hole. He explained that it was a teleportation gate, the very one his mother had tried to enter before she was killed. Tabby embraced him in gratitude, then lowered herself into the hole and disappeared. Elsewhere, Stephen wrestled with guilt after learning he had brought the monster into the village. Donna found him and urged him not to give up, assuring him that he still had the power to fix what had been done. With renewed resolve, Stephen set out to locate the music box Sarah had spoken of. Before he could begin his search, Reggie emerged from the shadows with a gun in hand. His movements were unnerving, as though another presence was controlling him. Apologizing in a strained voice, he shot Stephen in the shoulder. Forced to defend himself, Stephen managed to overpower Reggie and continued on. Reaching the ancient ruins, Stephen lit a torch and stepped inside. The flickering light revealed disturbing illusions, showing Julia and others bound and screaming as the haunting melody filled the air. The music box appeared before him, followed by a vision of his late wife, who told him to give up and claimed that everyone was doomed. Refusing to surrender, Stephen turned and smashed the box. In that instant, Julia and the others awoke, freed from the monster's control. Jim rushed to his daughter, relief flooding his face as he realized she was safe. Far from the village, Tabby emerged from the forest into an unfamiliar world. Before her stood a lighthouse, the very tower Victor's mother had described. She climbed to the top, where the boy in white awaited her.
I'm sorry.
He apologized, then pushed her from the edge. Tabby awoke in a hospital bed. A doctor explained that hikers had found her unconscious in the woods and brought her in. Without identification, the hospital had notified the police. Not wanting to be questioned, Tabby waited until the nurse stepped out, quickly changed into other clothes, and slipped away. Out on the street, she spotted the boy in white across the road. She ran toward him, but he vanished into thin air. Back in the village, Julia and Ethan were stunned to learn their mother had ventured into the woods alone. They blamed Jim for failing to stop her. Regret weighing heavily on him, Jim decided to search for her. Stephen tried to dissuade him, warning about his own failed attempt with Sarah to reach the lighthouse, where they had been stopped by spiderwebs thick enough to block their way. But Jim refused to turn back. Concerned that the children might lose both parents, Kenny decided to join him.
I'm gonna go with him.
Can I talk to you outside?
A sudden crash of breaking glass interrupted their plans. The noise came from a nearby house. Inside, they found Jade lying on the floor, surrounded by shirts arranged in a strange symbol. Since returning from the cave, he had been muttering about it endlessly. Stephen and Kenny quickly took him to the infirmary. At the shared house, Foda, pregnant with Ellis's child, had been feeling unwell. She brushed it off as morning sickness, though her persistent vomiting hinted at something far more serious. Meanwhile, far from the house, Tabby wandered the streets until she borrowed a phone from a passerby and called her mother. The sound of her mother's voice brought an overwhelming rush of relief, confirming that she had escaped the nightmare village.
Mom?
Tabby! Oh God, Tabby, where are you?
Her mother revealed that the family had been missing for months and that the police had been searching for them. Tabby wanted nothing more than to go home, yet the thought of Jim and the children still trapped in the village weighed heavily on her. Determined to save them, she resolved to find a way back. Meanwhile, in the village, Jim packed his gear to search for her in the forest. Elsewhere, Kenny stopped by the restaurant to say goodbye to his mother, unaware it would be the last time he would ever see her.
Yes.
The storm had destroyed most of the crops, and the resulting food shortage was pushing the villagers toward desperation. Hunger drove a group to break into Kenny's mother's warehouse, where they took the last of the store provisions. In another corner of the village, Randall slipped into the barn, intent on killing a goat. Victor and Ethan caught him in the act and tried to stop him. Tensions flared when Victor pulled out a gun, but before the standoff could escalate, Stephen arrived. He reminded them that the livestock was their only source of eggs and milk, and if they were killed, there would be nothing left to sustain the community. Randall left, his anger simmering. Elsewhere, Tabby made her way to the church to speak with the priest. She remembered the small box Victor had given her before she left. Inside, she found food packages he had prepared. At the bottom, hidden beneath the supplies, was an address, Victor's old home. Following it, she arrived at a modest house and met an elderly man, Victor's father.
For Christ's sake. I'm not in the mood. You hear me? Get the hell out of here.
When he saw the box, recognition flashed in his eyes, and he was visibly shaken. In a communal house, Elgin was tormented by visions of a strange woman. Too afraid to sleep, he confided in an elderly resident that he feared she would appear again. As they spoke, he saw her approaching. He woke abruptly. It had been a dream, yet her identity remained a mystery. Out in the forest, Jim and Kenny discovered wooden stakes carved with eerie human figures.
What the fuck?
Following their trail, they came upon an abandoned village. Jim decided it would serve as a shelter from the monsters, at least for the night. Back in town, the monsters began behaving in ways no one had seen before. They opened the barn doors and set the animals loose.
What the?
Stephen and Jade ran to gather them, joined by Kenny's mother and Victor. Inside one of the houses, Julia and Ethan were the only ones still indoors. When Ethan spotted his favorite goat outside, he ran to open the door. A monster was waiting. Julia grabbed his hand, pulling him into the night. They ran until they met Sarah, who dragged them into the bushes to hide. The monster's screeches echoed through the darkness, drawing more of its kind. From the bus, Randall switched on the headlights, drawing the creatures away and giving Sarah time to rush the children to safety. She ushered them onto the bus, slamming the door behind them. Outside, Stephen ordered the others to take the rescued livestock indoors while he returned the rest to the barn. Kenny's mother refused to let him go alone. Together, they secured the remaining animals and hurried toward the warehouse for shelter. But safety was an illusion. Inside, monsters were waiting. They seized Stephen and forced him to watch as Kenny's mother was torn apart before his eyes.
I'm not gonna kill you, boy. That would be no fun.
Rage surged through him, but he was powerless to stop the slaughter.
No!
The next morning, Jade entered the warehouse and froze in shock. Kenny's mother lay lifeless on the floor, her organs missing. Nearby, Stephen was somehow still alive, tied up and barely conscious. Once freed, he knelt beside her body, whispering apologies as he held her close. Her death shook the entire village, and Jade could not understand why the monsters had spared Stephen. Meanwhile, in the abandoned village, Jim and Kenny discovered fresh vegetables growing along the riverbank, enough to ease the food shortage back home. They gathered as much as they could and hurried back, only to be met with grim faces. It was then that Kenny learned of his mother's death.
Whose blood is that?
Kenny.
Who's my mom?
Kenny.
Ma!
Overcome with grief, he went to the restaurant, where Nurse Christie tried to comfort him. He pushed her away, his anger boiling over, and smashed the radio when its familiar music began to play.
Fucking stop!
Donna confronted Stephen soon after, accusing him of sacrificing an innocent life in exchange for protecting a few cattle. At the communal house, Fatima had been suffering from severe stomach pain for 4 days and was unable to eat. Her teeth had begun breaking for no apparent reason. Concerned for the baby, she went to the clinic with Ellis. After examining her, Mari assured them the child was healthy and suggested that Fatima's symptoms were likely due to stress from her first pregnancy. Relieved, Ellis took her home. Once inside, Fatima noticed baskets filled with spoiled vegetables. Drawn by an inexplicable craving, she began eating them. At the chapel, Christy and Jade prepared Kenny's mother's body for the funeral, with Sarah quietly assisting.
This one was her favorite. Thank you, Sarah.
When Kenny arrived to say his goodbyes, regret weighed heavily on him as he wished he had been there to protect her. Many villagers came to pay their respects. Determined not to let such a tragedy happen again, Stephen began forming a plan to deal with the monsters.
Yeah, I'm gonna need your help with something tomorrow. We're gonna catch one of these fucking things.
Far from the village, Tabby awoke on a sofa, disoriented. The old man explained she had collapsed on his porch. She told him about Victor, the nightmare village, and the nightly hunts. At first, he dismissed her story, as his wife and 2 children had vanished years ago and he had long since given up hope. But when Tabby described the ghostly children and the lighthouse in the forest, his expression changed. Before disappearing, his wife had claimed that voices told her she had been chosen to save the children at the lighthouse, and that doing so would break the curse. He led Tabby to his basement, where dozens of his late wife's paintings lined the walls. They depicted the nightmare village, the ghostly children, and mysterious boy in white.
How did you get out?
Back in the village, Stephen called Ellis to share his idea. If the monsters feared the protective stones, why not place them at the cave entrance to trap the creatures inside forever? Donna overheard and objected, warning that the plan was far too dangerous and that she would not risk more lives for something so reckless. Stephen decided to proceed on his own.
I am working on that.
Great.
That night, he asked Randall to switch bus seats so he could watch the monsters himself. Meanwhile, Fatima's condition worsened. The smell of fresh food made her ill, yet she searched through garbage for rotten vegetables and ate them in secret. An elderly woman happened to see her, but later visited kindly, assuming it was just stress from pregnancy. Hoping to reassure her, the woman offered to read her tarot cards. When Fatima asked whether her baby would be safe, a black crow suddenly crashed into the window, struck the wall, and fell to the floor dead. The unsettling incident lingered in everyone's minds, but life in the settlement had to continue. Soon after, Kenny joined Christy and several villagers on a trip to the abandoned village to gather fresh vegetables. While the others worked, Jade sat apart from the group, muttering under his breath. His temper had been worsening for days, and the others had begun to notice. While stepping into the bushes to relieve himself, Jade froze. Hanging from a tree was the body of a man. As he approached, the figure shifted. Shocked, Jade let out a scream. The others came running, but when they arrived, the body was gone. Uneasy, Jade urged that they leave immediately. Kenny reminded him that nightfall was close and suggested they stay until morning. Jade refused. As he turned to leave, Christy ran after him, but her foot landed in an animal trap. Pain shot through her leg, locking her in place. Kenny and the others rushed to free her.
Where have you been? Let's go!
Gotta got some leverage.
At that moment, Jade saw the same man again, and this time holding a skull and walking toward him. Christy's voice calling his name snapped him out of the vision.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
And pull.
Okay.
Once she was freed, the group carried her inside, just before darkness fell. Meanwhile, at the old man's house, Tabby heard a noise outside. In the backyard, she found glass jars hanging from a tree, identical to the ones Victor had once shown her at the portal site. The old man explained this was only a replica. The real tree was miles away. Sensing a lead, Tabby asked him to take her there. During the drive, her eyes fell on a necklace hanging from the mirror, one she recognized from the warehouse in the nightmare town. The old man said it had belonged to his wife. Unease crept over Tabby. Was she truly free of the village, or trapped in yet another illusion? Her suspicion deepened until she demanded he stop the car. He refused. As they argued, another vehicle appeared ahead, speeding toward them. The collision left the old man gravely injured.
We're going!
When Tabby regained consciousness, she was inside an ambulance. Moments later, the vehicle came to a sudden stop as the road ahead was blocked by a massive fallen tree. Above it, black crows filled the sky. The sight chilled her. It was the same scene she remembered from the night her family disappeared into the nightmare village.
Now, let's get back inside. It's not gonna work. It's okay. It's not gonna work. We'll take another.
The driver tried the radio, but there was no signal. The sun was sinking quickly. Tabby warned them that monsters would soon arrive, but her words were met with disbelief. Back in the village, Ethan received a phone call. A voice told him his mother was in an ambulance and in danger. He ran to tell Jim, but Jim, refusing to believe it, smashed the phone.
She's on an ambulance. That mom was alive.
That night, Stephen sat on the bus with Randall. Darkness fell, yet the streets remained empty of monsters. Then an ambulance appeared, driving into town.
Oh, shit. What the fuck?
Ethan spotted it and broke into a run, shouting that his mother was inside. Stephen and Jim caught him and pulled him back indoors. On the road, the ambulance driver noticed a girl lying unconscious ahead. Tabby recognized the trap and shouted a warning, but the policewoman dismissed her and cuffed her to the bench inside. The driver and his assistant stepped out to help the girl, unaware they were walking straight toward a monster in disguise. The moment they reached her, the creature sprang to life, slashing the paramedic and driver before they could react. The policewoman realized the danger, but it was already too late. As more monsters closed in, she sprinted toward the communal house, where curious residents pressed to the windows, eager to see the commotion outside. She fired several shots at the creatures, but one bullet ricocheted and struck a short-haired girl standing at a window, killing her instantly. Rushing inside, the policewoman's relief at escaping the attack turned to horror when she realized she had caused the fatal accident. With Christy gone, Mari took over and tried desperately to save the girl. But without proper surgical tools and with a wound far too severe, the girl died within minutes. Outside, Jim, Randall, and Stephen reached the ambulance. Jim froze in shock at the sight of Tabby, alive but handcuffed. Randall ran back toward the bus for his lockpicking kit, but the path was blocked by monsters. He tossed the tool to Stephen before retreating. Stephen threw it to Jim, who quickly freed Tabby. Stephen then climbed into the driver's seat, only to discover the keys were missing. From the shadows, a monster stepped forward, holding the keys with a mocking smile. It told Stephen he could take them, but warned that Randall would be staying behind. Stephen turned to see Randall surrounded, pleading for help. There was nothing he could do. He snatched the keys and drove away, leaving Randall behind as the vehicle sped toward the communal house.
I got you.
Inside, Stephen brought in Tabby and Victor's father. The room fell silent with shock, as Tabby had been missing for days. Pale and exhausted, she recounted her journey, convinced the boy in white had sent her beyond the village for a reason. Upstairs, Elgin once again saw the ghostly woman. She turned away, calling softly for help. He followed, but someone bumped into him, breaking his focus, and when he looked back, she was gone. Downstairs, word spread quickly that the monsters had returned Randall to the vehicle. Badly injured but still alive, he was carried inside. His face twisted with rage, he cursed Stephen for abandoning him. Elsewhere, Victor sat with Sarah and finally revealed the truth about the night the nightmare began. In a single evening, every resident of the village had been slaughtered, leaving Victor as the sole survivor. The boy in white had been his only friend. Victor admitted he had kept small possessions from the dead, a watch, a cigarette case, but none had belonged to Christopher. He remembered Christopher as warm and kind, until he learned the meaning of the circular symbol. That knowledge had driven him into madness, and he had murdered the entire village. Victor recalled seeing him speaking to a puppet named Jasper, the same doll Victor later found deep underground in the monster's lair.
Jasper's the one who can tell us why it happened.
Back in the communal house, the short-haired girl's body was wrapped in a towel, waiting for burial the next morning. Fatima approached quietly when no one was watching. She stared at the blood seeping from the wound, then wiped it onto her hand and brought it to her lips. As the taste lingered, a strange, almost ecstatic expression spread across her face. The next day, Kenny's group returned from gathering vegetables. Word that Tabby was alive spread through the village in moments, sending Jade hurrying to her house to see her with his own eyes. Across town, Victor arrived at the communal house and froze when he learned his father was there. Overcome with fear, he tried to leave, but Sarah followed him outside and urged him to face the man who had worried about him for so many years. After a long pause, Victor agreed, and the two shared a rare and heartfelt reunion.
Oh, there's Victor.
I didn't know how to get home. It's okay.
Later that day, the villagers gathered for a meeting to hear how Tabby had managed to escape. She recounted everything from stepping into the teleportation tree in the forest to climbing the lighthouse to meeting the boy in white. While some listened in awe, others reacted with resentment. Fatima accused her of abandoning those still trapped, and several voices in the crowd rose in frustration. A bald old man stepped forward and suggested sending people to the teleportation tree to prove Tabby's story. Stephen cautioned them, explaining that the tree's destination could not be predicted. He described how his own journey had led him to a deep well in the ancient ruins. The old man dismissed the warning, declaring that he would go himself. When the meeting ended, Ellis found Fatima in the garden hiding baskets of rotten vegetables. She confessed that ever since becoming pregnant, she had developed disturbing cravings and feared she might be carrying something unnatural. Meanwhile, still feeling the weight of the villagers' anger, Tabby decided to revisit the teleportation tree with Jade. The tree's branches held dozens of glass bottles, each containing a slip of paper marked with 4 numbers. As they studied the strange code, the bald, old man appeared. Announcing that he would be the next to escape, he ignored their pleas to reconsider and crawled inside the tree.
Just go in here.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Dale? Dale, hey.
Back in town, a commotion drew Stephen to the scene. The old man was wedged halfway into a wall, his body trapped and motionless. Moments later, the pressure crushed him to death. The crowd fell silent, realizing that Stephen had been right. The tree had the power to send someone to an unknown and deadly place, and no one dared to approach it again. The tragedy deepened Tabby's guilt. She felt she had raised the villagers' hopes only to destroy them. Jim tried to comfort her, but she pulled away, and tension began to grow between them. The following morning, Tabby found Ethan reading quietly in the living room. Jim had gone to the abandoned village to collect more supplies. A faint sound from upstairs caught her attention. She climbed the steps cautiously and froze at the sight of the 2 ghostly children she had seen before. Speaking in an eerie, unfamiliar language, they began walking toward her. Panic rose in her chest as she tried to frighten them away. Only when Ethan appeared did the apparitions vanish. Elsewhere, Ellis was still shaken by Fatima's confession. He urged her to see Christy for an examination. At that moment, Stephen arrived. Seeing the look on Ellis's face, he pressed for the truth. Ellis told him everything, and together they quickly took Fatima to the infirmary. On the way, they passed Elgin and Hall. Without warning, he raised his camera and snapped a picture of Fatima. When the film developed, his expression changed to shock. Standing behind her in the image was the same ghostly woman he had encountered days earlier. Moments later, she appeared before him in the flesh, whispering that if he helped her, she would save everyone. Before he could speak, she was gone. At the infirmary, Christy examined Fatima carefully. No matter how closely she looked, there was no sign of an embryo. She gently explained that there had never been a pregnancy, only the symptoms of a false one. The revelation sent Fatima into a rage. She began smashing objects before storming out of the room. Meanwhile, Victor, determined to uncover the village's past, entered the monster's cave with his father close behind. He was searching for the Jasper doll, believing it might hold answers. The shelves and piles he had seen on earlier visits were now empty, but he pressed on until they found a room filled with trinkets. There at last was Jasper. As Victor took the doll, his father spotted his late wife's scarf among the items. Overcome with emotion, the older man let out a sound that echoed through the cavern, waking the creatures. Victor grabbed his father's arm, and together they fled before the monsters could close in. Back at their hideout, Victor placed Jasper on the table. He remembered overhearing the doll speak to Christopher about the origins of the Nightmare Village. If he could make it speak again, he might finally uncover the truth. Elsewhere, Jade continued studying the numbers from the bottles found in the forest. Stephen mentioned that he and Sarah had once discovered another tree with identical bottles hanging from its branches. Intrigued, Jade asked him to take her there. When they arrived, she realized the tree had moved. This led her to yet another location with the same bottles. She collected them, compared the codes, and found they matched perfectly. When Jade shared her discovery with Tabby, Tabby's attention caught on a drawing of wooden stakes shaped like people, the same stakes she had seen in her childhood dreams. She began to realize it was not only Victor's mother who had been warned. She too had been receiving warnings, without recognizing them for what they were.
3 red stones. Did you see? 3 red stones, big ones.
How did you?
Jade took Tabby to the abandoned village, where Jim and others were gathering vegetables. There, Tabby told Jim everything, then led him to the red rocks nearby.
Are these the same ones from your dream?
She remembered hiding beneath them in her dreams while something terrifying hunted her and the others. Each time she tried to see its face, she would wake up. Jade believed this was no coincidence, convinced that Tabby's entire family had been brought to the village for a purpose deeply tied to its dark origins. Meanwhile, Elgin followed the ghost woman's instructions to a basement on the outskirts of town. At first, it appeared empty, but a faint, unsettling sound drew him to a hidden door. Behind it was a dark room containing the dried corpse of a man. The woman appeared again, and in that moment, Elgin understood that this was the place where everything had begun. Back in town, Cor, a newly arrived policewoman, grew frustrated at the lack of effort to escape. She wanted to take action, but Kenny told her to let it go. Everyone had tried before, and no one had ever succeeded. Having lost his entire family, Kenny no longer saw any reason to run. Meanwhile, Julia waited until her parents had left before visiting Randall at the infirmary, where he was still recovering from the monster attack. Hoping a change of scenery might help, she suggested a drive through the forest, and Randall agreed.
Okay.
The outing began quietly, but as they drove, Randall spotted phantom cicadas gathering overhead. Their numbers swelled quickly, sending him into a panic. He bolted into the trees, and Julia chased after him, only to stumble upon the same ancient ruins Stephen had once explored. Intrigued, she wanted to investigate further, but Randall caught up and urged her to turn back.
No, I want to check it.
Hey, stop. It's gonna be dark soon. We gotta get that van back to Colony House.
At the communal house, Fatima was still reeling from the truth about her pregnancy. She refused to believe it was false, insisting she could feel movement inside her. Ellis told her to rest, though worry lingered on his face. In the kitchen, the old woman of the house noticed his troubled expression, and he finally confided in her. Moments later, Fatima cried out in pain, clutching her stomach. By the time Ellis rushed in, the pain had stopped.
Fatima?
What's happening to me?
Concerned, he asked Christy to examine her, but she dismissed the symptoms as psychological. Later, Fatima crept into the garden to gather rotten vegetables. The old woman caught her and tried to intervene. Fatima snapped, shouting for her to stay away. In a sudden fit of rage, she seized a pair of scissors and stabbed the woman in the chest.
I said so! Don't tell him. I'm so sorry.
When Ellis returned, he found a lifeless body on the ground. Shocked, he quickly led Fatima to a hut deep in the forest, telling her to hide until things calmed down. She sat trembling inside, unable to understand why she had done it. After Ellis left, the ghostly woman in the kimono appeared in the corner, watching silently before vanishing. In the village, the old woman's body was soon discovered in the garden. Word spread quickly, and fear gripped the community. To prevent panic, Stephen ordered everyone indoors. Policewoman Cor began questioning residents, but suspicion quickly fell on Sarah because of her violent past.
Oh, we're gonna have to talk to Sarah. And if we don't figure out who, then it's gonna be Sarah, whether she did it or not.
At Stephen's home, Ellis confessed that Fatima was responsible. Stephen wanted to protect her, but Ellis argued that honesty might bring forgiveness, as it had for Sarah. Their conversation was interrupted when Donna entered. Stephen reluctantly told her the truth.
Boyd, look, I know you care.
It was Fatima.
She warned that the villagers would never forgive Fatima and added that his influence over them was fading. After she left, Stephen told Ellis to pack because Fatima had to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Victor was still trying to make the Jasper doll speak, but it remained stubbornly silent. Frustrated, he confided in Sarah, admitting that he could not remember the doll's conversation with Christopher. When Tabby learned of this, she offered to help. Together, they worked through his memories until Victor finally recalled that it had happened in the basement of the church. They went there, and as they stepped inside, the past unfolded around them. Victor realized it had never been the doll speaking, but the boy in white. He watched as the boy told Christopher the truth about the town. Christopher's expression hardened with rage as the boy revealed that to find the answer, one must return to the starting point. Children born in the dark had been killed in the dark, and their bodies had formed the teleportation tree. The only way to save them was to pass through it. Meanwhile, Julia returned home and found her younger brother Ethan. She urged him to follow her to the ruins in the forest, saying she felt an unexplainable pull toward the place. The moment they stepped inside, her body convulsed violently, and she collapsed.
Julie!
In an instant, Julia found herself in a dark cellar, watching herself, Randall, and Mari bound and screaming, just as they had been the last time they lost consciousness. Terrified, she covered her ears and shut her eyes, but when she opened them again, the scene had changed. In the corner sat an old man tied to a post, asking her to lower a rope into a nearby well because someone needed help. She obeyed, pulling up a figure she instantly recognized as Stephen, who told her that when he had been trapped at the bottom of that very well, she had been the one to save him. Julia then stepped through a doorway into a shadowy cave, where the sound of her mother crying mixed with children speaking in an unfamiliar language.
Mom?
She ran toward the voices, desperate to reach them, but woke before she could. Cor and Kenny had carried her away from the ruins, and still shaken, Julia clung tightly to Ethan. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Stephen led Ellis to the hut where Fatima had been hiding. Ellis was ready to leave with her, but the door hung open and she was gone. Hours earlier, Elgin had taken Fatima to a secluded cellar outside town, telling her it would be her new hiding place. Believing Ellis was waiting, she descended the steps, only to be trapped inside.
Ellis?
Elgin restrained her, insisting he meant no harm. He told her that the child she carried was not truly hers, but if born healthy, it could free everyone in the town. The woman in the kimono had told him this, he said, and to keep the baby alive, he even gave her his own blood to drink.
You need to eat. Yes. Come on. Just a little bit.
That night, Sarah was struck by a blinding headache, and the strange voice returned. By morning, she went straight to Stephen and Ellis, warning that Fatima had been taken by someone within the village and was in danger. Ellis's panic grew, and Stephen quickly worked with Donna to form a plan. They gathered the villagers, announcing Fatima's disappearance. The news spread shock through the crowd, who now believed she was being held captive. Stephen urged everyone to split into groups and search. Elsewhere, Victor, gripped by rage, approached the teleportation tree with an axe, determined to destroy it. A boy in white appeared, warning him not to. The tree was important, the boy said. Victor noticed the boy looked older than before and demanded answers about the town and how to escape, just as Christopher had once done. The boy turned and walked away in silence. In the cellar, days of confinement had left Fatima's stomach visibly larger. She writhed in pain and discovered a hidden door beneath the floorboards, but it would not budge. As she struggled, the woman in the kimono appeared, pressing a cold hand over her mouth. Outside the town, Tabby and Julia searched tirelessly for Fatima. In the distance, Tabby spotted the ghost of a child beckoning to her. She followed the apparition to the hidden cellar, where she found Victor.
Wait, where is she?
Hello?
Victor?
He shared what he had overheard between the boy in white and Christopher, then confessed that his mother had once gone to the tree and been killed by monsters. Believing her death was his fault, he sank into grief. Tabby tried to comfort him, but when her hand touched his, she was pulled into a vivid vision of his mother lost in the forest, surrounded and torn apart by monsters. Tabby screamed in horror. Victor brought her back to his home to recover. When she awoke, she told Jim and Jade about the vision, convinced it was a clue from the children and connected to the moving tree. Jade revealed that during his time in the monster's lair, he had seen children lying on a rock beneath. A ceiling where the tree's roots intertwined, forming the teleportation tree, exactly as the boy in white had described to Christopher. Jim believed the jars hanging from the tree might be the key to uncovering the town's secret. Back in town, Stephen, Ellis, and the others had begun noticing Elgin's increasingly suspicious behavior. Whatever he was hiding, they were ready to find out. That day, Elgin was preparing to visit Fatima's hiding place when Stephen intercepted him. Without wasting time, Stephen led him into a room and began questioning him. Under pressure, Elgin confessed that he was keeping Fatima hidden, convinced that if her child was born, it would free everyone trapped in the town. Sarah immediately warned him not to trust unseen forces, reminding him how she had once been deceived into killing her own brother. Ellis, seething with anger, demanded to know where Fatima was, but Elgin refused to reveal her location. Stephen left the room briefly and returned carrying the torture box.
No one comes upstairs. Nobody comes upstairs.
Ignoring the protests of the others, he ordered everyone out so he could confront Elgin alone.
If you just give it a little more time. We time! You're gonna tell me where she is.
We're going home. All you have to do is wait.
When intimidation failed, Stephen brought a hammer down on Elgin's hand, making him scream in agony. Hearing the commotion, Cor rushed in, but Stephen quickly pulled her outside, explaining what he was doing. Inside, Sarah told Elgin she would not stand in Stephen's way. Moments later, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the hall. Everyone ran back in to find Elgin missing an eye. Sarah had forced him to give up Fatima's location. Meanwhile, in the cellar, Fatima's stomach had swelled unnaturally, with unsettling movement shifting beneath her skin. Overcome with panic, she grabbed a shard of glass, ready to end her life. The woman in the kimono appeared and stopped her, speaking calmly as she said the time had come. Without hesitation, she pulled the baby from Fatima's body. When Stephen and Ellis arrived, the cellar door stood open. Inside, Fatima sat trembling. She told them that the woman had taken the baby deeper below and revealed what she had learned, that the monsters were once parents who had sacrificed their children in exchange for immortality. Convinced the basement held the town's darkest secrets, Stephen descended alone.
I need to see it.
What?
Look right behind you.
Elsewhere, Tabby continued studying the numbers from the glass jars, while Jade admitted she had tried everything from numerology to astrology without success. Jim then suggested the numbers might represent piano notes. Intrigued, Jade tested the idea, arranging the papers and humming a strange melody.
You just... what? I could hear the music.
Tabby suggested they bring the tune to the teleportation tree. At the tree, Jade played the melody on a small piano. Slowly, ghostly children began to appear, visible only to Jade and Tabby. One child knelt before Tabby and spoke in a language she somehow understood.
Arnkui.
Overwhelmed, she stepped away with tears in her eyes. When Jim pressed her for answers, Tabby revealed the truth that she and Jade had been there before. She was Victor's mother, and Jade was Christopher. Long ago, they had tried to save the children, but failed, condemning themselves to a repeating cycle that kept drawing them back. In the tunnels below, Stephen found the woman in the kimono, surrounded by monsters. In her arms was a newborn that rapidly grew and transformed into the very same monster he had once killed and examined. Back in the forest, Jim was still reeling from Tabby's confession when Julia's terrified scream shattered the air.
Can you hear me?
Julie!
She came running toward them, warning that something terrible had happened in town. Before Jim could react, a strange old man emerged from the trees, his eyes entirely black. Jim raised a piece of wood in defense, but the man seized him by the throat. Julia rushed to help, only to be thrown aside. The old man leaned in and whispered the same chilling words Jim had once heard over the radio, warning that his wife should never have dug that hole. Recognition dawned too late. The man drew a blade and, with a swift motion, slit Jim's throat, killing him instantly. So the moral of the story is never open the door for grandma, never trust mysterious kids in white, and if someone whispers creepy stuff about a hole, just run.